All right, so we are live and we are here to announce a very important thing. So, this weekend, which is Saturday and Sunday, the coming Saturday and Sunday, we are going to have a free online masterclass for you guys. In this masterclass, we will be talking about low level design. Right, so if you might be aware of it, low level design is a very important topic for software engineers. As you become a more senior software engineer, as you get in charge, as you become the leader of large software products, it is really important that the code you write is both maintainable and extensible, right? And a lot of top companies, be it Google, Amazon, Facebook, they have very rigorous low level design rounds, right? They have a system design round and they also have a low level design round. You might have also heard of it as a machine coding round, right? So in this workshop on Saturday and Sunday, we will be going over the concepts of low level design in the masterclass. The masterclass will be of 4 hours each on each day. So the timing will be 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. On each day. And in the first day, we will be discussing things like what low level design is, why it is important. We will be covering the design patterns. We will be taking the problem statement, which will be book my show. So we will be designing book my show, and we will be dissecting it. We will be starting from the requirements gathering. We will be figuring out what tech stack to use, how to design the database, what all challenges will we face. And on the next day, on Sunday, we will actually get our hands dirty and we will dive into the code. So we will design the entire application from scratch, end to end, and we will also deploy the application. All right. So if this sounds exciting to you, please register. The link will be in the video description. The class is on Saturday and Sunday, and it is about low-level design. All right, perfect. Now, just so that you guys are aware, you will also be getting a certificate for this class. Right. So to get the certificate, you will have to attend both the days, and you will have to basically do the code with us. So once you have attended both the days, they might also be a test towards the end. But you will be getting a certificate of participation if you attend both the days of the class. All right, let me quickly see if we have any questions at this point. Ritesh is saying, Pragya, generally we go from top to bottom in designing. So why not high level design first and then low level design? Well, Ratnesh, high level design is a completely different beast, right? When we talk about high level design, we talk about how to make the system scale. Right? What if we have millions of queries or billions of queries coming in a day? How do we scale to that architecture? How do we make sure that our service does not go down? Right? How do we make sure that the latency is low? And what really happens when our data is lost, right? How do we take backups and so many other things? Now, high-level design is an important topic, and most companies ask for it, right? In fact, all top companies ask for it. However, high-level design is kind of the famous child, right? It's kind of the pretty child. So a lot of people focus on high-level design, whereas nobody really focuses on low-level design. And in fact, low-level design is equally important, right? If not more, low-level design is equally important to high-level design. Right? You will have very less opportunities in your career to design the architecture of a large scale system, right? You design the architecture of a large scale system once and you change it a couple of times in between. But the low level design practices have to be practiced all along the way. If the project is a 10-year long project, every engineer in the project has to practice these low level design things, right? So it is perfectly fine that high level design should be discussed, but they are kind of separate. We can totally talk about a project without discussing the high level design, but discussing the low level design itself. Right? But worry not, we will be discussing all sorts of things in the low level design. So we will start from the very simple requirements gathering and we will make our way up to the actual code and the actual deployment. Okay. All right. Anshul here is asking technologies which we'll be using. So we will be writing most of our code in Java and we will be using the Spring framework. All right. So if you might be familiar, Spring is a very, very common framework, perhaps the most common framework in the Java world for writing web services and applications. That is what we will be using. All right. Apart from that, we will be also using tools like Lombok. We will be using some ORMs and things to connect to the database and such. All right. Once again, Dipanshu, the language we will be using will be Java. All right. Perfect. So guys, the registration link is this. It is also available in the video description. So if you are interested in this, please make sure that you go and visit that and register for this event. Lakshay is asking in which we focus first, LLD or HLD. Well, Lakshay, they are kind of separate, right? You can talk about the high-level design, the system architecture of a project, separate from the low-level design, right? And the design patterns and how to make the code extensible and maintainable, right? So there's two parts. One, low-level design talks about how to make the code extensible and maintainable, so that it is easy to read, it is easy to extend, right? There's not a lot of bugs. If there's a bug, how do you debug it? All those things. On the other hand, there is high-level design, which talks about what the architecture looks like. If you have 1,000,000 queries per second, how do you handle that, right? Or basically, if you have to A/B test something, or if you have to launch a new version of your product, how do you do that without taking the service down? Right? That is what high-level design talks about. They are completely separate topics. You can talk about one or the other without having to refer to the other. Okay? Perfect. Let us see if we have any other questions. What is the session about? Once again, Moshami, the session will be about low-level design. So we will be, first of all, in the first day, we will be covering things like what is low-level design, why it is important. We will be going into some design patterns, some of the most common and important design patterns. Then we will be looking at a problem statement, which will be to create a clone of BookMyShow. Right? So I hope that you guys all have heard of BookMyShow. It is an online ticket booking service, perhaps the most used one. So we will be taking that application, we will be dissecting it completely. So we will start with the requirements gathering. We will discuss what sort of technologies we will use, right? What sort of database should we use? Should we use SQL or should we use NoSQL databases? Then we will talk about what the database schema should look like, right? What the entities, what the relationships between these entities is going to be. Then on the next day, on Sunday, we will build upon what we have done in the previous day, and we'll actually dive into the code. So we will code this entire application from end to end, and we will also deploy it. Okay. Lakshay is asking, can beginners also attend this session? Well, Lakshay, you sure can if you want to, but we recommend that only those people who have at least 3 months of experience as a developer, as a professional developer, those people are going to benefit the most from it. So if you do not really have a lot of hands-on experience working in a company, then it will be really difficult for you to make connections of how these things work in production. If you have at least some experience with large-scale products, if you have 3 months of development experience as a professional, then you are welcome to it. Okay. What are the prerequisites? Well, the prerequisites are plenty and also not many. So that's kind of a conundrum over there. We will be covering the very basics. We will be starting from the very basics of design patterns and principles. However, we expect you to know the basics of Java. We expect you to know how to write code. Right? So we will not be teaching how to write code over here. We will be teaching how to write good code, how to write maintainable code. Right? You will also be required to understand some of the intricacies and some of the difficulties that happen when you actually start with a project. So suppose that, if you are a junior developer, then what usually happens is someone gives you a spec. Someone tells you that, okay, this is the function, this will be the output, this is the output, this is the input, and this is what the output is supposed to be. Please code this out for me. Right? That is what usually happens. But as you grow in your career, you will be expected to take charge of the entire project. So someone will give you, okay, I want to design a product that works like this, that does this work. Now you come up with how do you write the code, how do you construct the architecture, what modules are there going to be, how should the database look like, and all those things. So if you appreciate these things, if you are able to appreciate these intricacies for large-scale projects, that is all that we require in prerequisites. Okay, perfect. Let us see if we have any other questions. So we have Aman is asking, is low-level design and object-oriented design same? Well, no, Aman. Object-oriented design is a paradigm of programming, right? So basically, object-oriented design says that if you are writing programs, right, in these programs, if you can isolate certain things, isolate certain entities, and isolate certain prototypes, right, then and you can talk about the relationships, the attributes, and the functionalities of those things. That is object-oriented design. Now, Java, as we know, is an object-oriented programming language. However, low-level design is separate from that. So low-level design can also work for things like for other paradigms, right? For example, if you're working with procedural programming, if you're working with data-oriented programming, if you're working with functional programming, low-level design concepts still apply. Right? So low-level design is separate from object-oriented design. However, yes, that's a prerequisite that if you want to be really good as a low-level design engineer, if you want to be really good at low-level design, then you are expected to know object-oriented design. All right. So we will be using a lot of concepts of from object-oriented design, things like encapsulation, things like fact trace, and all those things in the low-level design class. All right. can we do this on the phone or laptop computer? Well, I would highly recommend that you use a laptop or a computer. There will be two reasons. First of all, I mean, if you are using a phone, you won't be able to code along with me. Now, you don't necessarily have to code along with me. However, in my experience, coding cannot be really taught as a movie, right? If you just watch a lecture as a movie, you're not going to get a lot of value out of it. The most value you get while learning coding is you actually have a code editor open for yourself and you actually try to code along with the lecturer. You might not be able to keep pace with the lecturer, right? You might not be able to note everything down, but at least trying to code it somehow, it helps you gain a lot more value. All right, so I would strongly recommend that you do it on a laptop or a computer, not on a mobile phone. Richa is asking, why not Python? Why in Java? Well, Richa, if you look at some of the largest companies and some of the, highest paying companies as well, companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Gojek, Booking.com, right? All these companies, their major tech stacks are in Java, right? So I know that, yes, Google uses a lot of Python as well. Google uses a lot of Go as well. They use esoteric languages. They use Haskell and many other things. But if you look at the largest systems, if you look at the legacy code, then most of these systems are in Java. And a lot of the companies, especially companies like Google, especially companies like Gojek and Booking.com, they especially look for Java engineers, right? And they especially look for people who have experience with the Spring framework. So, which is why we have decided to hold this session in the Java language, right? Okay. Himanshu is asking, is 2 months enough for learning all of web? Well, Himanshu, this question is not really relevant to this session. So we will not be talking about web development or basically creating websites over here. We will be talking about low-level design. In that, we will be creating a web service. So we will be creating the backend APIs for that. But we are not going to be discussing web design at all. All right. Sahil is asking, can it be done in Python later or any other similar low-level design? Well, yes, Python. Yes, Sahil. The concepts that we will discuss in the class, they will be transferable from language to language. So we will be using the Spring framework, but if you want, you can simply switch it out for Django. So the basic ideas, the basic concepts we will discuss, they will be language agnostic, right? So the design patterns, the design principles, the ideas of how to write good code will be language agnostic. Okay. Perfect. Let us see if we have any other questions. Pragati is asking, will we also be discussing things like Scrum and Agile? Well, Pragati, unfortunately not. If we were to discuss all these things like dependency management and continuous delivery and how to make sure that the tasks are well managed, how to handle issues, doing Scrum and doing Agile, all these methodologies, then the scope of the project becomes much bigger, and it will not be possible to cover this in one masterclass, right? In fact, we will need 10 to 20 different sessions to cover all these things. So, this is beyond the scope of this masterclass that is happening on the weekend. But if you want to learn more about these things, you can definitely register to Scalar Edge courses, to Scalar Academy courses, and there you will be able to learn all these things. Perfect. Let us see what other questions we have. Shivanand is saying, can I attend if I don't know Spring? Well, definitely, Shivanand. So the things that we'll discuss will not be specific to Spring. We will be using the Spring framework, but the knowledge of Spring framework is not required for you. So we will be focusing on the design patterns and basically how to write maintainable good code. All right. So even if you don't know Spring, you will be able to understand most of the things, but you are expected to have experience in Java. All right. Perfect. All right, I guess that is most of the questions. Prasad is asking, is concurrency important in low-level design? Well, definitely yes. Right. So a lot of the times when you're writing these large web services and web applications, you will not get one single request at a time. Right? You will get thousands or even millions of requests in parallel. And if your database is not well designed, or if your functions are not properly designed, if you're not handling that multi-threading, that concurrency issues, a lot of your data can go bad. Right? So whenever you're designing these applications, it is very important that you keep concurrency in mind. For example, in BookMyShow, suppose that you are trying to book a seat in the movie theater, and this movie has just released, and it is the first day, first show of this movie. So there's a ton of traffic, right? A lot of people are trying to book the same tickets. Now, what happens? So you are going to have a fixed number of seats in the theater, right? You have, let's say, 180 seats in the theater, but the number of people who are trying to book is 1,000. What happens if you have just one ticket remaining and two people click book on the same time? Right? What happens then? Which person do you really give the ticket to? What we have to ensure over there is that the ticket goes to only one person. Right? We can't give one ticket to two people. So we have to deal with concurrency over here, and there's no escaping it. Right? This is very important as you grow in your software development career. Handling concurrency in a proper manner will be very important for us. Right? Perfect. Let us see what other questions we have. Bhargav is asking, is the knowledge of solid and design patterns required? Well, Bhargav, the better you are at design patterns, and if you have the knowledge of solid principles, that will be great. But we will be starting from the basic design patterns in this class as well. Right? So if you have the knowledge, that is great, but that is not really a prerequisite. Okay. I mean, if you want to really master low-level design, then yes, you will have to learn these solid principles and the design patterns as well. And we will also tell you after the courses, in the last, 1 hour of the course, we will also tell you where to go next, right? So we have done this particular project, but if you want to increase our knowledge, what should we do and what things should we learn? So we will also give you those pointers. Perfect. All right. I guess that is all the questions that we have. So once again, guys, the class will be on Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. The class will be about low-level design. We will be talking about what low-level design is, what design patterns are. We will be discussing the major design patterns, the most important design patterns. Then we will be taking the project of BookMyShow, right, the online ticket booking service. And we will basically start from requirements gathering. We will do a database design. We will decide the tech stack. We will actually write the code. We will test it, and we will deploy it, right? And that will happen in 2 days, right, across Saturday and Sunday. If you want to register for this event, the link will be in the video description. So I hope to see you there. See you on Saturday, guys. Thank you.